You know what's funny that I just noticed in that post-credit scene or in that credit scene or whatever? I never realized who that actually was.
Oh, Thanos? How they set
Yeah,
Thanos up in that? Oh,
I
okay.
never realized that. I didn't put that together until just now.
I mean, if you look at it, you can tell it's not Josh Brolin or whatever, which
Right.
isn't
Yeah,
that big
but
of a deal. But that's not that big of a deal or
It's,
whatever. But
it's not that big of a deal at all.
yeah, but no,
Um,
it's funny that you didn't like
Never
realize.
put it
Yeah,
together this, before watching it this time because, I mean, honestly, I think the last time I actually watched the first Avengers was before Infinity War. So
really.
yeah. So and at that time I wasn't like really that deep into the Marvel universe,
Yeah,
either through comics or, otherwise. So I probably at that point in time wasn't even familiar with who Thanos was in the universe. Um but yeah, like that, just seeing that, it's like they really work on this stuff nonstop and they have their ideas years and years in advance
think
for
about this movie
movies
came
that
out in
aren't going to be made.
2012. This movie
Yeah,
came out 2012. Endgame came out 2019.
yeah,
And I mean, they set up Avengers, whether like they set up Avengers in Iron Man, which is 2008, like
yeah.
because that's when Nick Fury showed up at the end
Hmm.
talking to Tony Stark or whatever about Avengers. So I
Yeah,
mean, they've set, they set Avengers up, heck, 20 or not 20, but 10 years ago, over
right.
that, 12 years ago, and they set up, um, honestly, they set up uh, Thanos and all that, you know, nearly 10.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's just insane to think about how much has happened in the last 12-ish years with the Marvel movies. Um, and I
They've
think
gotten a lot better.
that's,
They really, I
yeah,
mean, some of them are like
exactly.
weirdly. I mean, you would. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, it's on its surface level, it's superheroes, and it's it's big budget, it's Hollywood and whatever, and
Yeah,
you can
there's
make
always
always
going to
make
be
the
nitpicky things.
yeah, and well, you can always make the case too that it's not an important movie or not
Yeah,
serious or whatever. But
it's
but
not a poignant movie,
sure or whatever. But
but
I mean, for me, with some of the stuff you can get from these movies or whatever, like I definitely have a more enjoyable experience watching stuff like this. And
yeah,
some of
I
these
do
are
too.
pretty good and powerful in comparison to some of these that really are just made to. I mean, yeah, this is my almost sophist view of it, but can be
Right.
just made to literally just be depressing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, I'm good. I can't think of a movie right now like that. But I mean, I know that there are some out there that are that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's one of those that, like, yeah, it's not my favorite movie even in the series, but it's definitely one of those that when I do sit down and watch it, it's never a dull moment. There's never a point where I'm like, well, you know, I don't like how they did this or I don't like how they did that. Like, I really enjoy everything about the movie.
Which
And
one? Which one you say wasn't your best in the series, your favorite in the series? But are you
uh,
saying it's just
this
any
one,
of them?
this
Oh,
one that we just watched, the
okay.
Avengers. But yeah, it's just crazy to see how far it's come from the first Iron Man on up to now. And it's just, I don't know, like, I think as far as like franchises
oh
go,
shit.
I think the Marvel franchise is my favorite by far.
Once upon a time, if you'd asked me that same question, I think I would have said Star Wars. But
Right.
over the last few years, whether I mean, I don't know why, especially when they were tied, at least ostensibly to Marvel through Disney,
Hmm.
as I just felt like they made some key missteps. Um,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, and it's not all the Last Jedi. I know the Last Jedi gets a lot of hate, and there are definitely
Yeah.
some things about that movie I don't enjoy, but there are some things about that movie I do.
Yeah.
So I won't, like, because I know it gets a lot of hate, and I don't think it's all earned. But I mean, The Last Jedi, after rewatching it, I like it, but I still feel like everything that movie tried to do, one, felt like it was trying to undo at least half of what The Last Jedi did, and that's fine, I guess, because again, there are some cases to be made that some things in The Last Jedi weren't quite, maybe up to snuff or whatever. But at the
Hmm.
same time, if you really were going to follow that train down that track, you probably needed two movies to kind of expand out. But instead, they
Yes.
try to shoehorn everything they possibly could in
Everything.
the Last Jedi.
They basically tried to bottleneck it, and
They did.
that's where a lot of plans can go to shit, for lack of a better term, because when you try to bottleneck anything, especially something as big as the storyline in the Star Wars franchise, when you just try to bottleneck it into one movie when it's obviously, like you said, two movies worth of stuff
Hmm.
to kind of process, that's when a lot of people lose interest.
And I think that actually happened. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I think that's what happened a little bit to me. For me, I didn't love The Force Awakens, but I was kind of
Yeah.
like, I was fascinated to see where some of the stuff was going. And The
Right.
Last Jedi comes out, and it was I did enjoy the movie, and there were some really cool parts of that movie. But then there was some other stuff that I'm like, man, I really wish it had kind of kept exploring, like the Knights of Ren, or I kind of wish
Yeah.
it had maybe explored Snoke a little bit more instead of just killing him off or
Yes.
whatever. And then The Last Jedi comes out like, no, we're actually, doesn't Snoke didn't matter because she's a granddaughter / clone of Palpatine or whatever. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, and I'm going to be honest. I mean, I read some theories about who she was related to or whatever that were way more interesting and way more plausible than like a straight up granddaughter clone of Palpatine. That were like, again,
Yeah.
way more story wise. It made sense. It was more enjoyable. I'm like, I don't know. And so when fan service is doing a better job of telling your story than you are,
Yeah. Like,
I don't know. It's not, something's not quite clicking the way it should. And so that's why I
yeah.
ultimately get to the fact that they're like cousins with Marvel right now, based on
Mhm.
Disney owning both. Like, what I'm ultimately getting at is I felt like, because you mentioned, but when you say something bottlenecks like that, you're ultimately what you're kind of getting at the end of the day. The issue isn't with the planning of it,
Yes.
and it felt like the planning of this new Star Wars trilogy.
You just rushed.
Well, I mean, okay, so Marvel knew what they wanted from day one. Like, they mapped
Yeah.
out all the movies. You knew they wanted this. Yes, each movie can stand alone. Some movies maybe need to add more connecting stuff than others, but some, like Black Panther, can kind of be on its own, etc. And there's some like Avengers, Age of Ultron, that kind of
Mhm.
set up maybe more than one, so it's kind of got a little bit more of that feel of, oh, this really is kind of a part that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense, but it connects other things. Star Wars, my problem was, it's like, all right, J.J. Abrams made Force Awakens, and it was kind of his own thing, cool, but
Yeah.
it set up a whole lot of stuff.
It did.
But I wish they had done, because I don't love. I mean, I'm being honest on repeat viewings. I don't love The Rise of Skywalker, not because I think it was a bad movie, but because it did, out of all of them, felt rushed.
Yeah.
Is I wish if they had really wanted to explore the stuff that J.J. Abrams was going to do, that they should have made him Kathleen Kennedy, I think that's the person who's actually the head of Star Wars now or whatever.
I think
She can still have that job or whatever, like being the president of it or whatever, but let this trilogy be under J.J. Abrams. Let the guy who clearly didn't love The Force Awakens and then wanted to kind of not really do half the stuff that Force Awakens set up,
Yeah.
The guy, I can't remember the guy's name, the one who made The Last Jedi, let him do his own thing with a different
Yeah.
trilogy. But clearly there was some lack of planning in the fact that Force Awakens set up a bunch of stuff. Last Jedi came in and undid a bunch of that stuff, and then The Rise of Skywalker came in and undid more of the stuff that The Last Jedi undid. And so it was just kind of
Yeah.
like, what the heck just happened? It was sort of a train wreck. And the way I describe it, it's not. Is it simplistic? Maybe, but is it wrong? I don't think so.
Yeah, and you're right. Kathleen Kennedy is the
Okay.
current, looks like, president of
Okay.
Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
She actually apparently was one of the co-founders in 1981 of Amblin Entertainment with Steven Spielberg.
So Indiana
Frank
Jones
Marshall.
and all those.
So
And those are.
she had a big hand in some of that stuff too.
I mean,
yeah,
on paper she's a great fit for Star Wars.
for
I mean,
sure.
I mean, so, and I don't think it was. I think it was a live and learn situation. I mean, they've clearly gone and corrected some steps with like
Yeah.
the Mandalorian and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I just so
maybe
you
not
previously
some of the best, maybe not some of the best creative choices on that film.
yeah, like strategy wise,
Yeah.
like I look at it from like a strategy standpoint, and if you feel like there's a bottleneck issue, that means that there was a lack of planning somewhere. So what I will say is, so previously I would have maybe said Star Wars was my favorite like franchise
sure.
type movie or whatever, but I think just knowing the way I've gotten more involved with Marvel over the years or the way I've followed, like I've
Mhm.
clearly become a bigger fan of Marvel. And it's not just because, I mean, obviously the story makes more sense or whatever, but think about some of the stuff that you would see, like I think back to the scene in Black Panther where the villain is dying and he says, "Bury me in the ocean," because of all my ancestors that chose to die there and to remain free instead of dying a slave. And I'm like,
and that's a
wow,
big moment. That is a
wow.
big moment.
You're not going to get that in a Star
And
Wars. You're not going to get that in a lot of movies that are like what you might want to call popcorn, big picture type stuff that out there. You're not going to get a comment like that or something like that.
I think, to go back on, when I jokingly said that, the Marvel movies aren't like poignant movies like all these big serious movies. I say that, but like there's moments like what you just mentioned that are very poignant moments because that will tug at the heartstrings of people who, have that in their background and that's it's little things like that really makes you think like, yeah, it's not really like set out to be this big serious poignant project, but it's got those little moments that really make it relatable.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Or like another like Civil War wasn't. I mean, yeah. I mean, it was sad. I mean, it's actually really entertaining. It's actually, I think it's one of Marvel's best, and I think it actually gets. I personally think it's underrated. Civil War. I think it's a better Avengers movie than Avengers: Age of Ultron. I'm not saying it's my favorite Marvel movie at all, but I think it's a better Avengers
it's
movie.
Definitely a really good representation.
So toward the end, though, the whole movie Black Panther, this is where he's first introduced. He's like on this like one-track mind mission to kill what's his face, Winter Soldier. Even it turns out he didn't do it, all that. But but like he like goes out, like he follows them where they have that big final fight with Iron Man, and he's like coming up behind the guy who like planned it all, that the one guy, and I can't remember his name, and I can't really actually quote it, but where he was like come up, he's like I came out here to like with just revenge or whatever, but he's like, but I've seen what having hate in your heart can do to someone, and he actually stops the dude from killing himself at the end, and like chokes him out or whatever. But at the same time, you're like that, the way he did that and kind of like that was really powerful. So it was just kind of like there's a lot of stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously Iron Man dying is always going to be an emotional, but there's a lot of other little things and other scenes that stick out to me just as much, if not more so, just because there's more of them.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree on that. And yeah, I think if there's people out there, that don't watch the Marvel movies because they think superhero movies are stupid, there's no, real value to them or whatever, because I've met people that feel that way, and
Yeah, sure. And
everybody's entitled to that opinion,
yeah,
but I feel like if those people would actually sit down and watch some of these movies, they would see that there's actually, like you were saying, a lot of really powerful moments in those movies that aren't just about cheesy superhero stuff.
I think Marvel's done a really good job, and this is, maybe I'm too philosophical now and whatever, but like, I mean, superheroes have always been, they've been a really interesting way to explore about, bigger things in our society. I mean, X-Men were,
Yeah.
pretty solid allusion to like the civil rights movement when it came out and stuff like that. Dated, version of it a little bit, but still an interesting thing that no other comic was doing at the time. So I think superheroes have always been a really interesting way, a very pop art kind of way, but a very interesting way of exploring things going on in our society. So
yeah, I really agree with that, because I think using like comics and superhero movies and stuff to tackle those big societal issues, it's a way to really get the message across without it being too heavy, because I think that's something that I've found with a lot of movies that have that like really strong, social, social issue kind of approach, is a lot of them are so heavy that for some people it might be hard to watch, because that those moments might be too relatable. I've seen a few of those lately, and just that are really close to situations that I've gone through in the last couple of years, and I ended up turning one of them off because I just couldn't watch it anymore. So I think repackaging that in a action superhero kind of film, and then just having those moments littered throughout the movie, I think it's a more lighthearted but also still very poignant and serious look at it.
I mean, I never personally thought that a movie about a superpowered potato was going to be. I was honestly just seeing if you were awake, Sean, because honestly, you looked.
I'm good. I'm here. I told you, I'm listening. I'll chime in whenever I want to put in my 2 cents worth.
Yeah,
the superpowered potato. Clearly, you were like, I'm interested.
I never expected to see a Captain Underpants movie where he's addicted to drugs either.
It was really harrowing stuff. Like really, it was
tugs
really,
at the heartstrings.
It really was rough.
Oh,
no,
hell with both of you.
No, I think, and maybe it's just because I've been taking sociology this last semester, I think I'm starting to really get more into movies that really take a deeper dive into societal issues and stuff now, more than I ever have. And I'm starting to notice, now that I'm learning more about like different sociological theories and stuff like that, I'm starting to notice more things in movies that I wasn't noticing in the past. And so that's why I kind of wanted to hit on some of the more poignant, heavier moments in the Avengers and Marvel movies, because I think it's important to really kind of remind people that yes, they're fun movies. They're, to some people they may be cheesy, but there are definitely, really strongly relatable moments in there too.
I mean, I think you're exactly right. I think for me, if you'd asked me several years ago, I'd be like, "Hey, it's awesome," Iron Man's funny.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine, and that's still part of my answer.
For sure.
I mean, they are, and it is fun, and it is funny, and there are, maybe, I'd be the first to fess up that I've always been a little bit childlike on certain things that I like, and so, and this will just be part of me forever, and I'm cool with that. But like when I was in grad school, we were talking about movies we like one day. I think I was in like a smaller group.
Mm-hmm.
So we had like a group project that was kind of due for like the whole semester or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we were, this was actually like for the year, like finishing up grad school. And so we were in this group, we were talking, so you're in a group, like in a room, like essentially like a meeting or conference room with a small group for like literally 5 days straight.
Yeah.
So you get to talking to these people, right? I mean, that's,
For sure.
and I remember us talking about movies, and it wasn't like even, I don't remember what movies they were, giving me as reference, and I seem to recall that the week we were finishing up was also like maybe the same day or same week that the first trailer for Endgame came out.
Yeah.
And so me and a couple other guys in there were like Chavez, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the ones that I remember us like email or texting about that day. But so when it came out, we were we were really into it, watching it, and so we were talking about movies. Again, it's a small group. You're in this group or whatever. And like I remember it being specifically mentioned, and I do remember that trailer being a catalyst for this discussion. But I do remember it being mentioned that these weren't serious movies.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. I was like, wow. I was like, that's. I mean, I was like, I've never thought about it, but I mean, to some extent, I'm not actually going to disagree, and I'm actually not disagreeing with them.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, these people fly around. They beat up bad guys. I'm
lot
not
of just magical fantasy.
Sure. I'm not disagreeing with that, but
Exactly.
I am disagreeing with the fact that they can't have serious elements to them, and that you can't
Exactly.
you can just dismiss them out of hand outright. You can't do that, because they do have serious elements, and almost each one of them has some serious elements that explore deeper things and can get to the heart of deeper truth more and more accessibly than you might be able to with a certain type of movie that's just, believe it or not, some movies that might be just aiming, that are more serious minded, that are purely focused on that, might not actually ever get to the point they're trying to get to.
Right.
I mean, if you've turned the movie off, for example, like you said you did, I don't think that movie actually did what it was trying to do if it was too hard on you to watch it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because art is supposed to be...
I agree, because,
accessible.
Yeah.
So that being said, I would disagree with that on two fronts. Is that it's a method of exploring larger things in our society, which you mentioned, but also, in an accessible way, getting at maybe deeper truths too.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm glad you said that, because the reason I did turn the movie off is because some of the stuff was too hard for me to watch because of things that I've gone through. And so in a way, like, it started to really kind of tug at my heartstrings too much, I guess, and took the fun out of actually just sitting and watching the movie. So I think it's really important, if you're gonna have a serious drama, or however you want to classify it, that deals with heavy things like that. I think it's really important to, I guess, maybe not take it too far to where it's not enjoyable, if that makes sense. Because I know that there are some movies out there that some people may think like, well, I don't watch that movie because it's just too difficult. It's got a good story and a good message, but it's just too emotional for me or something like that. So, I'm no screenwriter. I don't claim to be some brilliant author or anything like that, but I think you have to really be careful about how far into the realism you do go.
I agree, and and I think this gets into an opinion side maybe a little
Right.
bit, because there's probably someone out there who could disagree with me and maybe would do so pretty eloquently, probably would, but I might argue that art is generally made to be accessible.
Yeah.
That it generally is made to be viewed by others and not just the artist themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's why when I say that I don't know if the art is effective, if it's causing those that should be accessing it, like for you in that case, someone who had planned to watch it, had started watching it, if you turn it off, it's no longer accessible.
Yeah.
So if that means that's not, I don't think that's an indictment on you, the consumer of the art,
Right.
but I feel like that's an indictment on the artist, and unless their function was to make that art for themselves only. And if they've made it into something like you were watching, then clearly it wasn't made just for them.
Right.
And so again, that maybe that's too weird of a turn on it, or maybe that's a weird view of it, but that is my own.
I definitely agree with that viewpoint, because I know, like, if I start writing, because I do a lot of reflective writing, and you've seen, like, I'll post blogs and stuff like that on my website, but like if I start writing reflectively and when I get done I realize that it's just way too personal, I might not necessarily scrap that and put it in the delete pile, but I'm definitely not gonna post it on my website because I don't want to give away every piece of myself. Like I still want to have certain aspects of my life to be just for me. And so sometimes that reflective writing is just a good therapy session. So I may write for 2 or 3 hours and never post it ever anywhere because it was just me writing just to get stuff off my chest or just to kind of reflect on things and kind of just lighten my load, so to speak.
I mean, I definitely get that, and you're to some extent when you're writing at a certain point, especially for blog type stuff. I mean, I do know that you're obviously writing for not just yourself, but for or for it to be, I say consumed. It's not the right word, but you get what I mean. For people to consume or to access or whatever.
Yeah, people to access. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if it feels like it's becoming literally too much for the artist, the writer, etc., then it is losing its purpose, I guess. Especially if it's literally the intention. If it's losing its intention, then it's not working. But I mean, we really need to talk about the sequel to Super Potato.
We do.
Spuds in the Hood.
Spuds in the Hood.
Spuds in the Hood. Nice.
Glad.
www.superspud.com.
I know I'm a super stud, okay? You don't have to remind me.
It's
whoa.
Too fry.
Too fry.
I'm never going
Too French, too fry. Never
Too
gonna
Fast, Too
die.
Furious. I mean, they're both two and then an F word.
Yes. Two and an F word.
Too French, too fry.
I like it.
My gosh.
Too French, too fry.
Super spud.
In parentheses, never gonna die.
Hey, so John Carter's on Disney Plus.
Oh, that's a good one.
Dude, I started watching it a couple weeks ago and got like 20 minutes in and started to fall asleep because it was
It's
1 o'clock in the morning.
It's a pretty
Not
good
saying
movie.
about the movie. I was just already tired when I started it.
Man, so many people I know have dissed that movie.
It's such a good movie.
I've heard a lot
It
of people
is.
diss it too, and I'm just like, have you seen how high the man jumps?
I mean, shoot. Ronnie and I watched.
Also, what's her name's in there?
What do you think about my sequel title? I just had to write this. I had to get this out. This was for not just for the artist.
That is so amazing.
Thank you.
So
Just stop.
Is that amazing?
Just stop.
Why did you not do the 2 on Spud?
I don't know. Why didn't I? That's a good question.
You were not thinking.
You
So
failed.
I'll make the correction. Hold on.
So if you're watching, I don't know if you're gonna see the chat because I'm not.
I don't know.
This
I don't
is
think
like-
they do.
This is technically my first time really
I don't
fooling
think
with this stuff today.
I don't think they will.
I don't think you can see the chat, but Ron typed in 2 UPER, and he's about to redo it, I guess. But
Yeah.
2 PUD, 2 French, 2 fries, with a Z.
Obviously. And I assume everyone that'll be viewing this will
Super.
have at least seen the film classic Too Fast, Too Furious.
I would hope so.
I would argue it's flawless,
They're too
but
good.
there's nothing wrong with that movie at all.
agreed.
Let's-
It's
listen.
probably a far superior film.
You're
to-
never ever gonna see another film where
Tokyo
a guy
Drift.
drives a car backwards and then makes a 180 rolling down the freeway.
I mean, I'd make the controversial argument that it's a better film than Tokyo Drift, but I
by-
feel like
Leaps and bounds. Because let's just be honest, when Tokyo Drift came out, nobody understood the timeline.
it's
there
it's
was
still
only-
fit.
There was one character in the whole movie that had any connection with the original movie.
Until
And
the very
he was in there for like
they
2
marveled
seconds.
it. Until they marveled it and
Yeah.
brought in a character that was like,
Yeah. So yeah, let's just talk about the horrible timeline
I would love to talk
of
about
the Fast and Furious
awful
franchise.
timeline of the Fast and
It's
Furious.
it's literally all over the place. I don't know what's. I'm gonna be honest. Like, one of these days, I'm gonna actually Google the
chronological order.
chronological order by like storyline, not by release. And I'm gonna try to watch them all in that chronological order based on the storyline. Because if you watch them by like release date, they're never gonna make sense chronologically.
I mean, I will tell you there is some. Believe it or not, there is a worse film franchise with a far more confusing. And I'm not even. Actually, there might be two. There's two I can think of now, but there's one for sure that I've seen all of them, and I'm like, God, I couldn't tell you. Like, I can
What
kind
is
of
it?
tell you where to start, but I mean, at a certain point, I'm like, I have no idea. The X-Men movies.
Oh,
At a certain point, I have
Yeah.
no idea.
yeah.
No idea.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in that series. Chronologically, it's It's another masterpiece. What can I say?
I mean,
The movies themselves
they're
are
entertaining.
really good. The movies themselves are really good,
Yeah,
but I just can't with that timeline.
that timeline. And then they tried to like redo the timeline, and they just kind of gave up
yeah.
on that because there was a movie where they go back in time and redo some of the timeline stuff, and that's cool and that makes sense. But
Yeah,
then they undo that stuff, and you're like,
and it's
wait, huh?
just
It's like a
stop.
pocket universe, or are we
Right,
talking
like-
that stuff now, or
At that point, you just need to stop and give the franchise to somebody else that knows what they're doing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, because that was
Just let
I think,
Marvel
yeah.
Studios take over.
and I think that's the goal.
And can we just talk about the Fantastic Four movies?
We can.